Before we begin today's story, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel and comment down below. What apex predator would you bond with if you lived on an alien world? Your thoughts help shape future stories and keep this channel alive. Now, settle in because this is one tale you won't forget. The wind screamed through the skeletal pines as Marcus Hale moved silently between their frozen trunks. Moonlight spilled silver across the snow, outlining his broad shoulders and the dark hunting cloak draped down his back. Frost gathered on his beard, crunching with every slow exhale. Even in the deep cold, sweat slicked his ribs beneath layered thermal armor as he tracked the stag. He paused, crouching near a patch of churned snow. Large hoof prints, fresh. The stag was close. He reached out, fingers brushing the powdery surface, feeling the faint residual heat of the creature's passing. Around him, the forest seemed still, but he sensed the unseen eyes. They moved with him, silent shadows with paws the size of his forearm. "Easy," he whispered, his voice a low vibration meant more for them than himself. A massive dire wolf slunk forward through the trees. Her fur, thick and white as the drifts around them, rippled with quiet strength. Amber eyes locked with his. She lowered her head in acknowledgement before melting back into the darkness. Luna, his first and oldest companion, was always close. Two other shapes flickered in and out of the moonlit glades behind her, Brutus and Ghost, brothers each larger than Marcus when on their hind legs. Their paws pressed so lightly on the snow that not a sound betrayed their presence. Their breaths steamed softly into the air before vanishing. Marcus adjusted his grip on the bough slung across his chest and rose. They were ready. Minutes passed as they stalked deeper into the pines, weaving through black bark trunks glazed in frost. The scent of the stag grew stronger. Marcus moved with an instinct honed over decades. First as a ranger protecting human settlements on fringe worlds, then as a contract tracker for those who could afford his skills. Few could. Even fewer dared seek him out on this world. The stag appeared ahead in a silent clearing, antlers heavy with ice, steaming breath curling into moonlight. Marcus raised his hand, palm flat. The wolves froze. He drew back the bowstring with practiced ease, aiming just behind the stag's shoulder. The world shrank to the circle of the animal's chest, the steady thump of his own heart, and the dim awareness of his wolves' breaths behind him. He released. The arrow cut the silence with a muted twang and struck true. The stag gave a short grunt, stumbled and collapsed into the snow. Its body steamed in the cold. Marcus approached slowly, scanning the treeline out of habit. Danger was never far on this planet. Satisfied nothing stalked them at this moment, he knelt and placed a gloved hand on the stag's neck, feeling the final twitch of life leave its limbs. "Thank you," he whispered, honoring the creature with an old earth tradition before he drew his blade to begin dressing the kill. Luna padded forward, her massive paws crunching softly in the snow. She nuzzled his shoulder, her breath warm against his cheek. He smiled faintly and scratched her muzzle. "You'll eat well tonight, girl. All of you will." The brothers emerged next, tongues lolling, tails wagging faintly as they circled the stag's body. Ghost whined, eager to tear into the meat, but Marcus raised a finger. Discipline held them back despite their hunger. He worked quickly, cutting away hide and muscle with swift, efficient strokes. The pines stood silent sentinel above him. The only sounds were the ripping of flesh and the muted rustle of his wolves' shifting paws. His mind quieted in these moments. The galaxy, with all its warring empires and corrupt mercenary councils, felt impossibly distant. Here there was only survival and his pack. Then he heard it, a deep thrumming vibration in the air that set his teeth on edge. Marcus froze, knife hovering above crimson-stained snow. Luna growled low in her throat, ears flattening. Ghost and Brutus snarled, hackles rising as they turned toward the northern treeline. The hum grew louder, accompanied by a flicker of amber light through the trees. Marcus sheathed his knife in one fluid motion and rose, scanning the darkness. Branches shivered as something massive approached, snow falling in soft clouds to the forest floor. A black silhouette resolved in the pale moonlight. An angular dropship, its armored hull rippling with gold runes and alien insignia, descended with silent thrusters until it hovered just above the clearing. The hum cut out, replaced by mechanical clicks and shifting plates as its boarding ramp extended, crushing saplings beneath its bulk. 8 figures stepped out, one after the other, each nearly 8 feet tall. Their exo-armor gleamed obsidian under the moons, plated with barbed gold inlays and hung with trophy chains rattling against their thighs. They moved with unnerving precision, forming a semicircle around Marcus. Their helmets were shaped like tusked insectoid skulls, hiding their reptilian arthropod faces beneath black glass visors. Marcus stood calmly, his wolves crowding around him, teeth bared in silent fury. He counted 6 warriors and 1 towering brute with heavy plasma spears mounted to its forearms. Finally, a figure emerged draped in deep crimson and black battle robes, its armor marked with glowing glyphs of command. Its tusked helm bore a crown of bone spikes. It raised a clawed hand and the warriors stepped aside to let it approach. Hairless prey, it rasped, voice echoing from its throat speaker with insectal clicks woven through the words. Surrender your territory and your pack. Marcus tilted his head slightly. His expression remained unreadable, but inside, his rage burned ice-cold. The alien continued, gesturing to Luna with a claw. You will guide us to their dens. The Cargath Dominion has deemed dire wolves suitable for genetic adaptation. Their ferocity will serve us well in conquest. You will kneel, human, and you will command them to submit. Brutus snarled so loudly the warriors raised their plasma spears in caution. Marcus reached back and placed a hand on Brutus's massive ruff. The wolf quieted, rumbling deep in his chest but holding position. Marcus's eyes never left the warlord. I don't kneel, he said softly, the words carrying on the frozen air like a blade sliding free of its scabbard. The alien cocked its head. Its compound eyes, hidden behind the dark visor, seemed to appraise him with an alien patience. It gestured, and the brute stepped forward, plasma spears whirring as their barrels warmed to lethal charge. Marcus slowly raised his hands, palms outward, dropping his gaze as if in surrender. He stepped away from the stag's body, snow crunching beneath his boots. The wolves bristled but remained where they stood, hackles stiff, ears flat against their massive skulls. He lowered to one knee, his hand brushing his hunting knife still sheathed at his hip. The alien chuckled, a wet rattling sound that turned Marcus's stomach. See, it crooned to its warriors. All flesh knows its betters. Marcus lowered his head further, hair falling over his eyes. But beneath the shadow of his brow, his lips barely moved. Luna, he whispered, his voice a ghost lost in the night wind. Command Formation Omega. A faint beep answered him from the mic on his wrist. Luna's ears flicked forward. Her muscles coiled beneath her thick fur. Ghost crouched, baring his teeth so far back his gums showed black against his ivory fangs. Brutus shifted his paws, settling into a wide stance. Marcus raised his head just enough to meet the warlord's gaze. Run, he whispered. The silence of the clearing shattered under the sudden, earth-rumbling growl of 3 apex predators preparing to kill. The clearing erupted in chaos as Luna lunged forward, her massive frame a blur of white fury against the shadows. She struck the nearest Cargath warrior like a thunderbolt, her jaws closing around its armored throat. The creature's scream cut short as its trachea collapsed under bone-crushing pressure. Metal plates buckled and splintered, shards spraying across the snow as Luna twisted her head and threw the body aside like broken prey. Before the others could react, Ghost shot between 2 warriors, silent and deadly as moonlight. His fangs sank into the back joint of an alien's exo-armor. With a savage tug and jerk, he ripped the leg free, sending the creature toppling onto its side, thrashing in agony as dark ichor sprayed across the snow. Brutus charged headlong at the brute wielding plasma spears, slamming his massive shoulders into its chest with a crack that echoed like splitting stone. The alien stumbled back, weapons flailing, one spear firing wild plasma bolts into the sky as Brutus's claws tore at its exposed midsection. Marcus moved in perfect harmony with his wolves. In one fluid motion, he drew the plasma sidearm strapped to his thigh, aiming square at the Cargath warlord standing frozen in shock. He fired twice, the high-energy round striking dead center in its armored chest. The creature roared in rage but staggered backward, sizzling smoke rising from melted plates. The remaining warriors regrouped, raising their weapons to fire. Marcus dropped to one knee, grabbing a fistful of snow and hurling it into the eyes of the closest alien. In the same motion, he rolled forward under its spear thrust, rose behind it, and slammed his plasma knife under the edge of its helmet. The blade's white-hot energy seared through flesh and bone, filling the air with the acrid stench of vaporized tissue. Luna darted past him, her fur streaked with alien blood, and launched herself at a warrior taking aim at Ghost. Her weight struck its torso with enough force to crack reinforced bone plating. She pinned it down, jaws clamping onto its skull, crushing it with a single decisive bite. Marcus pivoted, tracking the remaining warriors. Brutus tore out the brute's throat with a savage rip, spraying ichor in a wide arc. The brute fell, plasma spears sputtering and sparking in the snow. Ghost danced away from another alien's sweeping spear, then darted forward, sinking his fangs into its wrist and twisting until the weapon dropped into the snow. Marcus advanced, fired a plasma round into the creature's faceplate, and stepped over its twitching corpse without slowing. Only the warlord remained now. It stood near the edge of the clearing, one hand clutching its smoking chest where Marcus's shots had struck. Its compound eyes glimmered with something between hatred and disbelief. Around it lay the bodies of its warriors, shredded and broken, staining the snow black beneath the rising moons. The warlord growled, deep and resonant, and drew an energy blade from its belt. A 2-meter shaft of crackling purple plasma extended with a resonant hum that vibrated in Marcus's teeth. The wolves circled outward, fangs bared, hackles raised. Their growls built into a chorus of fury, vibrating the frozen air like the threat of a coming storm. Marcus straightened, breathing hard, chest rising and falling under his frost-covered armor. He holstered his sidearm and flicked his wrist, igniting his own plasma knife. The blade hummed softly, casting blue light across his scarred face. Steam curled from his mouth as he spoke. "Stay back," he ordered his wolves. "This one's mine." Luna growled in protest, but Marcus's eyes flicked to hers, calm and unyielding. She lowered her head and backed away, her brothers mirroring her. The circle widened. Snowflakes drifted lazily through the moonlight, silent witnesses to the duel that was about to unfold. The warlord let out a guttural clicking laugh. "You think you are worthy to face me alone, hairless prey?" Marcus rolled his shoulders, loosening the tension in his muscles. The cold bit at the gash on his arm where a plasma bolt had grazed him, but he ignored it. His focus narrowed until only the warlord remained in his mind's eye. "I don't think," he replied softly. "I know." The warlord roared and charged, blade humming as it cut through the air with a sound like tearing lightning. Marcus dodged left, feeling the heat of the blade pass within a hair's breadth of his chest. He twisted, pivoted on his heel, and slashed his plasma knife across the warlord's thigh. The blade seared through the thinner joint plating, slicing flesh beneath. The creature howled in rage but did not falter. It turned with inhuman speed, swinging its blade in a vicious horizontal arc. Marcus ducked under it, snow spraying as the plasma blade vaporized frozen earth and ice where he had been standing a second before. He rose behind the warlord, slamming his fist into the wound he'd just carved, eliciting a pained screech. The warlord spun, striking him across the chest with the back of its armored fist. The impact threw Marcus several feet backward into the snow, his breath exploding from his lungs in a harsh gasp. He rolled to his feet, chest burning, vision swimming for an instant before he forced it clear. The warlord charged again, blade raised high, compound eyes blazing with fury. Marcus waited, perfectly still, knife lowered to his side. At the last possible moment, he dove forward under the warlord's guard, driving his shoulder into its gut. The alien stumbled, losing balance for a fraction of a second. It was enough. Marcus slammed his plasma knife upward, plunging it beneath the warlord's chin. The blade burned through flesh, bone and brain tissue, erupting out the top of its skull in a brief spray of boiling ichor. The creature froze, its roar cut off mid-scream and toppled backward into the snow. Silence fell over the clearing once more. Marcus remained crouched, panting, his knife humming quietly in the frigid air. Slowly he stood, deactivated the blade, and wiped alien blood from his face with a shaking hand. The wolves approached, tails wagging, tongues lolling as they nuzzled him in silent affirmation. Luna pressed her massive head against his chest, rumbling softly. Marcus rested his forehead against hers for a moment, eyes closed, feeling her warmth seep into his frozen skin. When he opened his eyes, he scanned the clearing, gaze hard and calculating. Bodies lay scattered across the snow, black ichor steaming in the moonlight. He walked to the fallen warlord and knelt beside it. With deliberate calm, he unclipped the alien's comm device from its armored belt. It was a sleek black oval, pulsing with faint golden light. He pressed the activation rune and held it to his mouth. His voice was quiet, carrying the edge of cold iron forged in decades of survival. "This is Marcus Hale, the Dire Alpha." His wolves raised their heads, ears pricking at the authority threading his words. "Your warband is dead. This world is under my protection. Send more if you wish, my pack hungers." He dropped the device onto the warlord's chest, rose and whistled softly. Luna turned toward the forest, ears flicking, and padded forward. Brutus and Ghost followed her, tails swaying, blood steaming on their muzzles. Marcus glanced up at the twin moons overhead, their light reflecting off his eyes with a cold silver glow. Without looking back at the carnage behind him, He walked into the silent pines, his wolves flanking him like living shadows. Snow fell in quiet sheets, covering the bodies, erasing all signs of the battle save for the fading scent of blood and the deep footprints left behind by a man who would never kneel. He did not quicken his pace, though he knew more ships would come. The Cargath Dominion never accepted defeat easily. But neither did he. And as long as he and his wolves walked these forests, this world would remain beyond their chains. Marcus moved swiftly through the forest, silent as the wolves flanking him. Frosted pines blurred past, their branches heavy with fresh snow. The night deepened around them, shadows thickening beneath the twin moons. Ghost ranged ahead, his white-gray coat flickering in and out of sight like drifting smoke. Brutus trotted to Marcus's right, ears swiveling constantly, his massive paws leaving deep impressions in the snow. Luna walked closest, her amber eyes scanning the darkness with a hunter's instinct. Occasionally she brushed against Marcus's thigh, grounding him with her silent presence. He could feel the cold in his bones now. Beneath the thermal layers and armored plates, sweat chilled against his skin. The gash on his arm burned where plasma had grazed it earlier, blood frozen around the edges of the torn fabric. But Marcus ignored the pain. He kept moving, one hand resting lightly on Luna's ruff as they descended a narrow ravine toward a hidden creek. The wolves needed water and he needed time to think. The creek cut through black rock, steaming faintly where it met the frozen air. Ghost drank first, his tongue lapping quickly at the frigid flow. Brutus followed, lowering his head with a deep rumble of contentment. Luna remained at Marcus's side, leaning against him as he crouched to wash blood from his face and hands. Alien ichor swirled away into the current, staining the snow-dusted stones before vanishing downstream. Marcus stared at his reflection rippling in the moonlit water. Harsh lines of fatigue carved his face, accentuated by frost clinging to his beard and eyebrows. Pale scars crisscrossed his cheeks and neck, each one earned in a life defined by survival. His dark eyes remained steady, reflecting back a man who never bowed, never broke, even when logic dictated surrender. The wolves lifted their heads in unison, ears pricking forward, eyes narrowing toward the darkened treeline across the creek. Marcus turned, every muscle coiling in readiness. At first he heard nothing but the faint gurgle of water beneath thin sheets of ice. Then he felt it, the low vibration of approaching engines, muffled under stealth dampeners but still resonating through the frozen earth. He rose slowly, scanning the darkness. Between the twisted trunks appeared faint blue lights, flickering like ghostly lanterns. The wolves bristled, growls vibrating in their chests. Ghost's hackles lifted until he seemed twice his size. Brutus lowered his head, lips peeling back to bare long yellow fangs. 3 sleek figures emerged from the shadows, their armor matte black with curved plates molded tight to inhuman frames. They moved with eerie grace, twin-barreled rifles cradled against their chests. Their helmets were angular with narrow eye slits glowing sapphire in the dark. Marcus recognized their insignia immediately. Cargath Ghost Stalkers. Elite hunters and assassins deployed only when a target required swift and silent elimination. The lead Ghost Stalker raised a hand, palm outward. Its voice echoed from its throat speaker, calm and metallic. Marcus Hale. The Dire Alpha. The Dominion offers you an honorable death. Surrender peacefully. Marcus tilted his head slightly, his expression unreadable. The wolves pressed closer around him, forming a tight formation with Luna at the front. Her eyes locked onto the lead stalker's throat, the low rumble in her chest building like distant thunder. He said nothing. Silence stretched between them, punctuated only by the hiss of the creek's icy water. The ghost stalker shifted its stance, lowering its rifles as though to aim, but Marcus was already moving. He flicked his wrist, plasma knife igniting with a sharp crackle of energy. Luna lunged at the same instant, her massive body a blur of white as she collided with the lead stalker, driving it back into the snow. Metal plates buckled under her weight as her jaws clamped around its helmeted head, crunching through reinforced alloy until sparks and hydraulic fluid sprayed across her muzzle. Ghost and Brutus charged the remaining 2 assassins. Ghost weaved left, narrowly avoiding a burst of plasma fire, and darted under the barrel to clamp his fangs onto the stalker's knee joint. With a savage twist, he ripped the limb sideways until it bent unnaturally, sending the creature crashing down. Ghost lunged upward, jaws closing on its throat, tearing through synthetic vocal cables and arterial tubing in a spray of blue-black fluid. Brutus barreled straight into the 3rd assassin, taking 2 plasma shots to the shoulder without faltering. His bulk drove the stalker onto its back, where he pinned it with a massive paw and ripped its chest armor open with curved claws. The creature struggled silently, its rifles pinned under Brutus's weight as he sank his jaws into the exposed torso, tearing out internal components and flesh in one brutal shake. Marcus advanced toward the downed lead stalker, plasma knife humming softly in his grip. Luna stepped back, blood and oil dripping from her fangs. The ghost stalker twitched, half its helmet caved in, its single remaining eye flickering weakly with dying power. "Why do you come here?" Marcus asked softly, crouching beside it. His voice carried no anger, only cold curiosity. The stalker gurgled brokenly, its voice modulator sparking. "You are an anomaly, cannot be permitted." Marcus nodded once, almost kindly, then plunged his knife into its throat, severing the last flickers of life. He stood, deactivating the blade with a flick. The forest fell silent again, disturbed only by the wolves' heavy breaths and the soft crackle of drifting snowflakes landing on armored corpses. He turned to Luna, resting his hand against her blood-warmed muzzle. She pressed her head into his chest with a low whine, as if asking what came next. Marcus stroked the thick fur behind her ears and lifted his gaze to the moonlit canopy above. The Cargath Dominion would keep coming. They never tolerated defiance, especially from humans they considered lesser prey. But each time they sent warriors, each time they dispatched assassins or hunters or stalkers, his wolves grew sharper, more coordinated, and more fearless. And each time Marcus felt that familiar coiling satisfaction deep in his gut. The same satisfaction he had felt decades ago when the first slaver ship burned in the sky above his homeworld after he planted explosives along its fuel rails. The satisfaction of knowing every death he delivered protected not only himself but every living thing that called this world home. He stepped back from Luna and whistled once, low and short. Ghost moved forward, muzzle slick with blood and oil, his pale eyes scanning the treeline for movement. Brutus shook himself, spraying blue-black droplets across the snow before snorting hard, fogging the freezing air with each heavy exhale. Marcus sheathed his plasma knife, then reached up to adjust the comm device still clipped to his chest harness. Its cracked screen flickered faintly, showing static interlaced with alien script. He thumbed the activation rune. "This is Marcus Hale," he said quietly, his voice carrying calm finality. "You sent hunters. They failed. Send more if you wish. My wolves and I, we do not tire." He let go of the rune and listened to the quiet click as the transmission ended. Above him, the twin moons drifted higher, bathing the forest in pale silver and deep shadow. The wolves stood silently at his side, watching him with unwavering loyalty written in every line of their powerful bodies. Marcus inhaled deeply, filling his lungs with freezing air scented with pine sap, blood, and ozone. The cold burned through his chest and into his veins until he felt awake in a way no warmth could match. He glanced at Luna, then toward the northern horizon where faint blue flickers hinted at the auroras rising to dance in the upper atmosphere. They would need to move soon. The Dominion would send more than assassins next time. They would come in force. Dropships. Orbital support. Perhaps even a warlord worthy of that title. But he felt no fear. He felt only clarity. "Let's go," he murmured. Without hesitation, the wolves turned and padded into the darkness, Luna leading with tail raised high. Marcus followed, boots crunching through fresh snow, plasma knife humming faintly at his hip. Behind them, the creek burbled softly around broken armored corpses as the auroras began to bloom across the sky. The hunt was far from over. The snow fell heavier as Marcus led his wolves through the darkened forest. Branches bent under the weight, releasing quiet avalanches whenever a breeze shook them free. The wolves moved in absolute silence, ears flicking, noses raised to catch every scent on the cold wind. Ghost prowled to the left, muscles rippling under his thick gray coat. Brutus followed behind, massive paws crushing a silent path through fresh drifts. Luna walked at Marcus's side, tail held low but eyes bright with unspoken questions. They reached the ridgeline just before dawn. From its peak, Marcus saw the faint glow of thruster flares painting the southern horizon. Dropships. Dozens of them. Black armored hulls streaked the dimming stars as the Cargath Dominion descended in force. A war party. No, a purge. Marcus crouched low behind an ancient pine, ignoring the frost seeping through his knee plates. His eyes narrowed, studying the incoming formations. One large carrier ship hovered above the others, a floating fortress bristling with plasma turrets and orbital cannons. Its hull bore glyphs of rank that even he recognized. A supreme warlord had arrived to cleanse this world of its defiance. Brutus whined low in his throat, almost inaudible. Marcus reached back without looking, fingers curling into the wolf's thick ruff. The big male stilled instantly, though his muscles trembled with anticipation. Ghost lowered his head beside Marcus's other knee, ears flicking as his tail lashed the snow softly. Luna pressed her broad muzzle against Marcus's cheek, her warm breath clouding around his face. He turned to meet her amber gaze and felt that familiar coiling calm settle into his chest. His heartbeat slowed, his breathing deepened, and for a moment there was no fear or anger, only the crystalline clarity of the hunt. He rose slowly, surveying the valley below. The Dominion dropships descended among the pines, their landing thrusters sending up twin vortices of snow and shattered branches. Armored troops disembarked in tight formations, rifles raised, scanning every shadow with unwavering precision. They moved like a machine of black and gold, each warrior stepping in perfect synchronicity. In their midst strode the supreme warlord. Its frame was monstrous, standing nearly 10 feet tall even without its crown of segmented bone spikes. Heavy exo-armor covered its body in overlapping plates, runes etched along every joint and seam, glowing with deep red energy. 4 plasma scythes were folded against its back, each large enough to bisect a tank. Its helmet was carved into a stylized insectoid skull, tusks curling outward, compound eyes blazing like molten embers. The supreme warlord raised one clawed hand and the army froze in absolute silence. Its voice boomed through external amplifiers, echoing across the snowbound valley. Marcus Hale. Dire Alpha. You have defied the Dominion's will. You have spilled the blood of its warriors and torn apart its honored stalkers. Now you face extermination. Marcus stepped forward out of the treeline, his wolves flanking him in a perfect line. Snow fell around them in silent drifts. He said nothing. He simply watched the supreme warlord with dark eyes devoid of fear. The alien cocked its head slightly as though amused. It lowered its claw and spoke with quiet finality. Kill them. Hundreds of armored soldiers surged forward, plasma rifles raised, energy blades humming to life. The wolves tensed, growls vibrating the frozen air. Marcus raised his hand and whispered a single word. Now. The forest erupted around the Dominion army as shadows poured from between the trees. Dozens of dire wolves emerged in disciplined formation, each larger than the last, their eyes glowing amber with HUD-targeting lenses Marcus had engineered himself. They charged as one, snarling thunder rolling across the valley. The Dominion lines faltered under the sudden assault, screams and plasma fire echoing as wolves ripped through armored ranks, jaws crushing throats, claws shredding reinforced plating. Luna lunged at a rifleman, snapping his weapon in half before slamming him into the snow, his helmet caving under her bite. Ghost darted through the chaos, weaving between muzzle flashes and energy blades, taking down soldiers with surgical precision. Brutus plowed through an entire formation, sending bodies flying like broken dolls, his roar rattling the ice-crusted pines. Marcus moved behind them, plasma sidearm drawn, firing precise shots into exposed neck joints and faceplates. Each trigger pull sent another armored corpse to the snow. His wolves protected his flanks, moving with him like extensions of his own limbs. He reached the supreme warlord as Luna tore down the last remaining soldiers in its immediate guard. The towering alien activated all 4 plasma scythes, humming blades crackling purple as they unfolded with a resonant screech. It lunged forward with terrifying speed for its size, swinging 2 scythes in a sweeping arc. Marcus ducked under the first and rolled to the right as the second cut through the air where his chest had been, vaporizing snow and soil. He rose behind the warlord and fired 2 shots point-blank into its back plating. The rounds sizzled against the heavy alloy, leaving only scorched craters. The warlord twisted, swinging a scythe down in a vertical strike. Marcus raised his plasma knife just in time, parrying the blade aside. Sparks erupted as the weapons clashed, illuminating his grim, focused face. The force of the impact threw him backward into the snow. The supreme warlord advanced, scythes humming as it raised all 4 for a final killing strike. Marcus lay still, eyes locked on its towering frame. Blood dripped from his temple where the last blow had grazed his helmet, staining the snow dark red. Luna growled so deep it vibrated the air itself. The warlord paused, turning its head just as Luna lunged at full speed. She collided with its chest in a thunderous impact that echoed off the ridges. Her jaws clamped onto its helmet, wrenching sideways with a feral snarl. The reinforced alloy groaned under her bite but did not break. The warlord swung a scythe at her flank, striking hard and throwing her across the snow. She yelped but rolled instantly to her feet, blood matting her fur. Ghost and Brutus charged together. Ghost bit down on the warlord's armored knee while Brutus slammed into its back, claws tearing at the rune-carved plating. The warlord roared, spinning with inhuman force. It kicked Ghost away and drove an elbow into Brutus's head, sending the huge male sprawling. Marcus rose, chest heaving, blood dripping from his chin. He glanced at Luna, who crouched with her tail low, ready to die for him. He flicked his plasma knife on and off, testing the blade's power. Its humming crackle steadied his resolve. The warlord advanced again, blades raised to strike him down. Then Marcus did something unexpected. He whistled, 3 short notes rising sharply in the frozen air. Every wolf within earshot froze. Luna raised her head, ears flicking, eyes locked on his. Brutus and Ghost growled softly, bracing themselves. Marcus sheathed his knife. He sprinted forward unarmed, charging directly at the supreme warlord. The alien swung all 4 sides in a crossing arc to slice him apart. At the last instant, Marcus dove low, slid under the sweeping blades, and slammed both fists against the wound Brutus had carved into the warlord's back. The creature stumbled forward, its sides slicing empty air. Luna saw her moment. She leapt high, higher than any wolf her size should, and clamped her jaws onto the warlord's exposed throat joint. With a guttural snarl, she twisted and tore. The alien's head canted sideways at an unnatural angle as it released a strangled, gurgling roar. Marcus rose behind it, drew his plasma knife again, and drove it upward through the base of its skull with both hands. The blade burned through brainstem and crown in one searing thrust. The warlord's massive frame spasmed once. Its sides flickered and died. Slowly, it collapsed forward into the snow, red rune lights dimming until only darkness remained. Silence fell over the valley. The remaining Dominion soldiers lay dead or dying, their bodies strewn across blood-stained drifts. The wolves gathered around Marcus, forming a silent circle of living shadows. Luna pressed her muzzle against his chest, eyes half-closed in exhausted relief. Ghost licked the blood from his knuckles, tail wagging once before settling still. Brutus limped to his side and sat heavily, his ribs heaving with labored breaths. Marcus rested his hand on Luna's broad head, feeling her warmth seep through his gloves. He turned slowly, surveying the field of corpses beneath the rising sun. The auroras faded into dawn's pale fire above, revealing a world scrubbed clean by snow and death. He raised his eyes to the sky where the Dominion carrier ship hovered, silent and unmoving. Bringing the comm device to his lips, he spoke with quiet, lethal certainty. This world is under the protection of the Dire Alpha. Send another army if you wish. My wolves hunger. He dropped the device into the snow and walked away without looking back, his wolves flanking him like loyal wraiths of tooth and claw. Behind them, the bodies froze beneath the rising sun, silent monuments to the day the Cargath Dominion learned that on this death world, it was not the apex predators they needed to fear, it was the man who walked among them.